The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Weekly Forecast.
Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for December 27th through the 31st of 2021. Alright, we'll start off with the pound dollar. This is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this horizontal trend line right here just became legitimate with its 3 touches with 1, 2, and 3 right here, and since price has a tendency to want to test strong levels, in the long term I am long biased right back up to this horizontal trend line. And moreover on the weekly chart, since there was a weak short trade that formed here and a strong long trade that formed here, and although typically that would mean there's a weekly long bias, there is a possibility that this long trade already hit its target at a monthly gap level that runs right through this level. And at the current moment I'm looking at the lower time frame to confirm this weekly bias. So in the short term, I'm neutral biased. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. For a full explanation of what's been happening in the price action in this entire area right here, please refer to the Forex Recap series. But the last bias that formed on this weekly chart was as follows. So there was a weak short trade right here against a strong long trade. So at this point, typically the bias will be long. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high up here before reaching this pivot low. However, like I mentioned on the overview, there is a possibility that this long trade already hit its target at a monthly gap level that runs right through these levels right here. And so for the time being, I'm watching the lower time frames confirm this weekly bias, whether long or short. But before we get into that, let me just show you this monthly gap level right here that I was talking about, along with some strong levels I'm looking at on the monthly chart. So let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, that monthly gap level that can be a target is this gap right here. So the upper level will be 1.3394 and the lower level is at 1.3368. Okay, and moreover, let me just show you this lower gap level right here that's actually providing long strength. Okay, so the upper level for that will be 1.3217 and the lower level will be 1.3184. Okay, so at this point, this upper gap level right here is what's providing strong short strength, and more of this lower gap right here is what's providing strong long strength. Alright, so like I mentioned earlier, typically on the weekly bias it should be long at this point. However, there's a possibility that that long trade hit its main target at this gap level right here. And I'm watching the lower time frames to decide whether to be short or long bias at the moment. So let me just go ahead and show you what I'm looking at on the lower time frames. Okay, so let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, that weekly bias stop loss level is at this pivot right here. And that target for that weekly bias is way above at higher levels. Now, if you recall last week, in terms of using trendline breakouts to confirm a higher time frames bias, there was long confirmation. So again, that trendline breakout was of this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. And so at this point right here, we did get an acute recovery following the breakout of this trend line. And moreover, we also did get that pullback to the previous major high at this level right here, which is confirmation of short-term long strength. However, if you remember, I also mentioned at this point right here, there was actually a fake double top that formed, which provides short-term long strength. However, this fake double top actually hit its main target at the target height level, which shows that although there was short-term long strength, the short strength was still able to override that short-term long strength, and thus not confirming this long bias. So in a nutshell, the lower confirmations were giving contradictory signals. And so as price pulled back to this point right here, I did not take this long entry. Now moreover, price began to hit that monthly gap level roughly in these areas right here. And so when price pulled back to these levels right here, a trendline breakout confirmation of long strength would have been of this trend line from this pivot right here to this breakout pivot right here. So in this area right here, as you can see, there was no acute break back into this trend line. Now, as you can see, this is more like a V-shaped recovery. However, what I'm looking for is a trend line breakout, an immediate break back in. So in other words, the close of the breakout candle and the open of the break back in candle is at the same level. And we didn't have that here. So again, I did not take this long entry. And at the current moment, price is testing that monthly gap level that could possibly be a target for that weekly long trade, making the weekly bias become short again. And so at this point, what I'm looking for is further confirmation of whether or not this target has been hit. So let me show you what I'll be looking for in the coming weeks. So first of all, in terms of trendline breakout confirmation, the main trend line I'll be looking at is from this pivot right here to this pivot right here. Now, if price could fall down to this trend line level and have a breakout, and in this case, not have an acute breakout back in. So in other words, if we have price action like this right here, this will confirm no short-term long strength, which could possibly further confirm that that weekly long trade did hit its target at that monthly gap level, and thus the bias will be short. Now I'll be looking for short entries. However, like always, I'll always use lower time frame price pattern confirmation along with this trendline breakout confirmation to make my decision about biases. Now there was a legitimate 15-minute double top that formed in this area, so let me just go ahead and show you that. Let's go over to the 15-minute chart. Okay, so on this 15-minute chart, as you can see, there was a legitimate double top that formed right here. Now, if I'm looking for that bias to be short, what I want price to do is to reach its target height level before reaching the second peak stop loss level right here. So basically, I just want this legitimate double top pull through on its price pattern in terms of targets. Okay, so along with the trendline breakout confirmation, I'll also be watching this 15-minute double top to give me further confirmation of that weekly bias, whether long or short. Okay, so let me just sum this up for you on the weekly chart. Okay, so again, that weekly bias is stating that it's long for the time being, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. However, price is at a monthly strong gap level right here. That could be a target for this last weekly long trade. And once that lower time frame confirmation is confirmed, there's three types of entry I'll be looking at. And number one is very simple. Even if a target is hit, price can pull all the way back to levels up here. And again, that main stop loss level is at this level right here. So if this target was hit and this weekly bias was actually short, I'll be waiting for a pullback as much as possible. I could take a short entry with a stop loss at this pivot high and its main target being down here. Now the second entry option will be a daily time frame entry. But in this case, I'm going to need a short trade to form and a long trade to form. And if this short trade is stronger than this long trade, then that's along with this weekly bias, which is short. So that daily situation be a short entry opportunity. And the last entry option is through the lower time frames confirmations. However, the entry opportunities in that case will be case by case, so I will not be explaining that method for the time being. Okay, and moreover, if this weekly long bias did not hit a target at this level right here, well then the bias will be long. In other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. So if there is lower confirmation of short-term long strength, which signals that this monthly gap level is not a target, then I'll be looking for a slight pullback down for a long entry. This main target at this pivot high right here and a stop loss at this pivot low. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the Euro Yen pair. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of legitimate trend lines and weekly biases and whatnot, please watch my price action trading course. For that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can understand these forecasts. Okay, this is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since the last long trade that formed was right here, and a stop loss at this pivot low right here, and several months back there was actually a compact short price action that formed at this area, which shows strong short strength. In the long term, I'm short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. However, on the monthly chart, since there's a strong gap level right here that price is trying to get through at the moment, which can cause a slight pullback in the near future, since this compact short price action that formed right here is very strong short, in the short term, I'm also short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, we'll stay on this weekly chart. For a full explanation of what's been happening in price in this entire area right here, please refer to the Forex Recap series. Okay, but what's happening in recent price is that still the bias is short, So in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low right here before reaching this pivot high right here. So there was a nice pullback all the way to that stop loss level for a great long-term short entry. And price came all the way back down right to a strong monthly gap level that runs right through these levels right here. However, the November monthly candle did break out that monthly gap level. At the current moment, we're at another monthly gap level that is providing long strength. Okay, and in terms of entries, there's basically three setups I'm looking at. Now, number one is very simple. If we could get price to pull right back up to these 132.60 levels, then I'll be willing to take another short entry with the stop loss again at the same pivot high right here, and its main target being down here. Or more over on the daily chart, if we could get a short trade to form and then a long trade to form, and if this short trade is stronger than this long trade, then that can be an entry setup short along with this weekly short bias. And finally, I'm also looking for price patterns on the 4-hour or daily chart, because price patterns that form that show short-term short strength are often very good entry points that go along with these higher time frame long-term trades short. Okay, so before I get into that, let me just show you these gap levels I'm talking about. So let's go over to the monthly chart. Alright, so on this monthly chart, that first major gap level that the November monthly candle broke through is this gap right here. Let me just show you the levels for that. Okay, the upper side will be 129.41 and the lower side will be at 128.48. And moreover, that new monthly gap level that price is trying to get through is at this level right here. Okay, so the price level for that, the higher level will be 127.78 and the lower level will be 126.80. Okay, and moreover, there is a trend line level I am watching for, so let me show you that. Alright, so that trend line is from this pivot to this pivot right here. Okay, so seeing that this November monthly candle did break out of this, I'm pretty sure at this point, this trend line will be providing short strength. Alright, so let's go talk about those entries I was talking about. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, like I mentioned earlier, one of the entry setups is a pullback all the way up to those 132.60 levels for another short entry. So in other words, if I am going to enter with that method, I want price to pull back way more than this. And so I'm looking for signs of that short-term long strength. Now the first sign of that short-term long strength for me is for this fake double bottom right here on this 4-hour chart to fail. Or in other words, I want price to reach its target height level before reaching the stop loss level right here. Okay, so if price could reach this level right here, that is a sign of short-term long strength. Now that said, there is a caveat. This fake double bottom in itself, to me, is aesthetically not clean enough. Now you can see how this right peak is really choppy like this, right? Now this 4-hour fake double bottom is very hard to tell whether it's aesthetically legitimate. So even if price does get to its target height level before reaching the stop loss level right here, although that will give me partial confirmation of short-term long strength, it is minimal. And so what I'll be looking for in terms of confirmation of short-term long strength will be on the even lower time frame. So let's go over to the 1-hour chart. Okay, so on this 1-hour chart, actually in this level right here, there was a 15-minute fake double bottom that formed. However, this fake double bottom actually reached its target height level right here before reaching the stop loss level right here, which did indicate strong short-term long strength. So in other words, this move up right here was predictable. And moreover, on this trend line breakout confirmation, as you can see, we did get a acute breakout back in, along with the stopping out of the previous major high right here, which also shows long strength. However, on the 15-minute chart at this level right here, there was a legitimate 15-minute double top that formed that actually reached its target height level, which shows that short-term strength is either neutral or only slightly short. So putting it another way, there was short-term long strength all the way through these levels right up to this level right here, and all of a sudden everything just flattened out here. So what I want to see in terms of that nice pullback to that 132.60 level are more trendline breakout confirmations or price pattern confirmation that shows short-term long strength, propelling short-term price to that 132.60 level. Okay, so for the time being, for that first entry method, I'll be watching lower time frames to get this confirmation for short-term long strength. Okay, so now let me just finish up with those other two entry methods. Let's go back to the weekly chart. Okay, so again on this weekly chart, this weekly bias is short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low right here before reaching this pivot high. Now another entry method to go along with this higher time frame long-term short trade are through price patterns. Now a lot of times when these long-term trades fall for a long time, it's very difficult to find at which point you could enter along this long-term trend without price pulling back to stop you out. Now, one way I enter these long-term trades are through price patterns, for it's very common for a long-term trend to have one leg, then make a lower time frame price pattern, which also serves as consolidation for the next major leg down. So on the 4-hour and the daily chart, I'll be looking for any fake or legitimate double bottoms to form, or for example, an HNS to form. And again, this could also be double tops or regular HNS patterns. Okay, and last but not least, I'll always be looking for any daily short trades to form, and then a daily long trade to form. And if this short trade is stronger than this long trade, well, that is a basic entry method to enter this long-term short trade. Okay? Alright, so that's it for the weekly forecast. I hope you guys have a great week. And thanks for watching. Okay, bye.